this meeting to order. So welcome everybody to our July meeting. And follow our protocol, wear your mask, and stay 6 feet or more apart if you can. Follow the protocol. Remind everybody we're going to address the jury today. If you have not filled out a card, please fill one out. With that, I'd like to ask the lead us in the pledge, and Scott, do some work.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sign the Lord, also, our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, deliver us from evil. Amen.
All right, item number 3, a bond for the Audubon Society. How are you this morning?
Good, how are you? There's no microphone that works, so I'm going to talk as loud as I can that everybody can hear me. Is this a good volume?
Just
Okay. Well, good morning, and thank you for having me this morning to talk about our work here in Parish and the ongoing work that we're hoping to continue as we protect our dune system as well as the birds that depend on them. And I wanted to have a presentation to help with some of the things I'd like to address today with all of you. Maybe it's better if I stay on this side so I can move the, yeah. So first I want to start off by saying that Louisiana is a very, very special place. It's a very special place for wildlife. It's got a rich diversity of birds here. It is situated in the heart of a major flyway. This is a hub for migratory birds. Cameron Parish especially is a place that is a prime birding destination in the state. It is a well sought after place. People all over the world that are interested in wildlife and recreation. So this is a very special place, and I'm very privileged to work here, and I'm happy to be working to protect our coastline here. Just looking at this more broadly, the Gulf of Mexico is a central hub for birds. This is a very important place to support bird populations, not just birds that reside here, but birds that are moving to and from breeding grounds. This is a migratory route for a lot of birds on major flyways. So this is an area that they depend on to feed and rest and to continue on with their migration. The coastal habitats are extremely important for these birds to be able to thrive, and they need these ecosystems in order to sustain their populations. And I want to just point out that birds are used as indicators. They tell us a lot about our environment. This is an example here of the brown pelican. The brown pelican is our state bird. It's very iconic. It's a bird that was extirpated from the state of Louisiana in the early 1960s, and that's due to a pesticide that was being used known as DDT. After that DDT was banned from use, we were able to, conservationists and biologists were able to introduce the species back into the state, and were able to recover the species, and we now have a great population of brown pelicans, and it's a success story of how birds can tell us about what's going on in the world around us and how they are telling us about broader issues. So as all of you know, we live in a changing landscape here on the coast. We all experience this. This is something that isn't news to anybody in this room. We are losing land at an alarming rate. We are in a coastal land loss crisis. We experience erosion and subsidence and sea level rise. These are all things these birds are experiencing as well. We are hit with hurricanes and intensified storms. We have more frequent storms in the spring. This is impacting these birds as they are trying to nest on these coastal ecosystems. Of course, there is development on our coast as we expand, and all of these disturbances are shrinking suitable habitat for these birds and other wildlife that depend on them to nest and to forage and to migrate through to where they're going. So Audubon, Louisiana, we are working here in Cameron Parish. We've been working here rigorously since 2014, and we monitor these specific species that use the coastal dunes to raise their young. And these are all highly migratory birds that visit our coast for the spring and the summer. Of course, when a lot of people come to enjoy the beach, this is the habitat that these birds call home. And they use our grasses and dunes and vegetation to raise their families. And so we've been collecting data on these three species for the last several years, and we're continuing to do this work to better understand the health of our coastal habitat. So looking at this a little bit closer, this is where we work specifically here in Cameron Parish. We focus on areas and prioritize areas that are suitable for these birds to nest. There's a lot of low-lying areas in Cameron, so they don't have a lot of options. They need areas that are relatively elevated, such as Holly Beach Restoration Area that's been renourished by a multi-million-dollar restoration project. Rutherford Beach is also a very critical area for lease terns. It's an area that's relatively elevated, has a little bit of a ridge and vegetation for them to hide in, and it's a critical area for those species to thrive. So that's where we spend a lot of our time surveying and monitoring and protecting the birds in Cameron. So this is just a recap of the threats these birds face. So just like all of the things I talked about with land loss and all the things we, as people of the community here, are facing, these birds also have to combat with these natural threats. But on top of that, they have to combat with human-induced threats like beach driving and kites and recreational activities. People bringing their dogs to the beach and letting their dogs run loose and running into the dunes and stepping on nests. All of these types of activities are impacting the birds. They scare the birds away from their babies, and they have lots of failure. There's also unbalanced predator populations here, as well as invasive species with the feral cat problem all over the country, and hogs. All of these things are threats to these birds. They have to battle all of these things in order to be successful. So Audubon protects these critical nesting sites by the use of symbolic fencing, and what we do with staff as well as volunteers, and some of you in this room have been excellent volunteers in helping us, and the fire departments and local community is very supportive of this work, and they help us erect the fencing in these high traffic areas and provide buffer zones to reduce these disturbances so that the birds are able to have a safe place to raise their young and not be disturbed as people are enjoying the beach. And these are areas that are identified year to year. This is something, the birds are going to move around. They move around on desirable habitat, and the more they're disturbed, the more they're going to move around. And we put up fencing around areas that have the most concentration. And we can only put up fencing in so many places. We can only fence areas that have large concentrations, just because there's going to be that sporadic movement with disturbances. So our goal is to make sure that the birds are protected where the concentrations are highest, so that the birds have a better opportunity to be successful. This is just an example. This is a bird that I did not mention, but this is called a snowy plover. And the snowy plover is an extremely rare nester. There's only a handful of confirmed breeding records, many of which come from Cameron Parish. That last year we had, with our stewardship and protection efforts, we were able to see hatch success from a rare nester. And unfortunately this year, the nest was run over by a vehicle that was illegally riding in the dunes and crushed the nest of a very rare bird that we are working to protect. So I'm asking you today and requesting your help. We need help with enforcing the existing laws that are in place to protect our coastal habitats, to protect the birds that we all care about, and keeping the people and the dunes and these birds safe in these areas. It's critical. Right now, there's birds that are occupying Broussard Beach. That's a beach that's relatively remote, that does not have much enforcement action on, does not have any signage with speed limit regulations or safety regulations for the people to have a better idea of what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do there. There was a new access point that has been opened up at the rec center that has been an area where people are getting onto the beach and there's no signage there or anything educating anybody about what they're allowed to do on the beach. So I would like to consider closing a portion of that beach to driving, so that birds do have one section of beach where there is no driving at all, to benefit them, and due to the remoteness of the area and the amount of issues in those areas. But I wanted to just, so when I say existing laws, I wanted to run through these laws I'm talking about that are in front of all of y'all in those packets. These are things that are listed as state and Cameron Parish statutes. So these are things that are in place right now that we should be enforcing. And the speed limit on the beach is 10 miles per hour. Anything over that is eroding our coastline. And the reason why there's a speed limit is to reduce the erosion and the impact to our coastal system that is extremely fragile. And this also gives wildlife like baby birds time to move out of the way. When you're driving at excessive speeds, things like this can happen. We're experiencing not just chicks and eggs getting run over. People at excessive speeds are running over breeding birds, adult birds, that have the ability to fly away and cannot fly away fast enough because people are driving too fast. These are just examples of some adult birds that have been found in dunes that have been run over by vehicles and smashed. And this should not be happening because people should not be riding in the dunes.
What was that at?
Rutherford Beach. So this is another ordinance that, or statute that's in place in Cameron. And you see signs all over in areas like Holly Beach and Rutherford Beach. No driving on the dunes, keep off of the dunes, but it's not enforced enough and there are no consequences. And what's happening is people are driving and parking on grass and vegetation, and that is compromising not just the birds, but it's also putting us more at risk by eroding our dunes that we need. And that vegetation is holding these dunes together and protecting our community. This is an example of some of the ongoing issues that we have. This is a protected nesting area where signs have been stolen. People have purposely run through nesting areas on their ATVs and other off-road vehicles and have crushed baby birds and eggs, and they've also ridden up into the grasses where we're trying to protect that not only for the birds but for us. So this is just an example of some of the vandalism and theft that we have to experience just by, it's not enough just protecting them with fencing. It's not enough. There's equipment being stolen and issues there. So another issue I wanted to just kind of show you is this is a game camera that was specifically used just for birds to monitor the eggs that are circled here, and that's the nest stick that's identifying that nest. Where we track a subsample of nests to understand how successful they are. And you can see in here there's vehicles within feet of running over these eggs. And also in the picture is an open glass container, which is, again, another statute that is not enforced at all. There is glass bottles on the beach all of the time, and the broken glass is dangerous to not only residents, but to visitors that are visiting the beach and wildlife. Having broken glass on the beach, there's a reason that this is a statute. It's because it's dangerous that when they break, small children, family-friendly beaches are, at risk of getting hurt by glass. Also, alcohol has contributed to all these illegal behaviors. We're noticing that, alcohol is definitely something that's driving a lot of this, reckless driving and things like that in these areas. Another statute that also exists currently is there are areas that off-road vehicles and all vehicles are completely prohibited. And these are areas that are part of Holly Beach as well as the restoration area east of Holly Beach, that multi-million-dollar restoration project and the Johnson Bayou area. There is no driving allowed, period. And time again, every day, there are vehicles on those beaches. And that is just crushing dune restoration efforts, crushing the dunes that are being built by vegetation plantings, and also impacting wildlife. And lastly, no dumping. This is another one that, signs are all over the parish, no dumping, and you see dumping everywhere. It's a huge problem, and we understand that is an issue that has existed for a long time. But let's face it, trash is ugly. It's a public health and safety concern. It attracts predators and unwanted visitors to the beach, like coyotes and raccoons that are then killing baby birds and eating eggs. So it's this cascade of issues when you leave trash on the beach. Perhaps maybe having dumpsters at all the access points would help, and having more maintenance with that would be a good idea. And then fishing line as a death sentence for wildlife. They get entangled in it, and there's no way of them getting themselves out of it. So that's definitely an issue. There's a lot of people that just leave wads of fishing line all over the place, and it's an issue that needs to be addressed. So I ask you that, we enforce these laws, that we're aware of the laws that are set in place, and we enforce them, and we consider adopting some new laws to help mitigate these issues. And with that, I just want to thank you for letting me speak today. And you have in front of you a copy of a petition letter that has a lot of support behind it, that basically saying the same thing, that it's not just Audubon that cares about this, it's the residents of Parish, it's also the state residents that care about our coastal habitat and this wildlife. And we want to make sure that these things are addressed and that we start to better enforce these laws. So with that, I thank you for listening to me.
Have you talked to the sheriff about enforcing the laws? I mean, we can't enforce the laws. It's the sheriff that
Yeah.
enforces them.
Yeah, sure,
You give him
absolutely.
that presentation?
Well, I thought he'd be here today.
Yeah, but he's the one you need to talk to about enforcement. We can make new ordinances if we have to or something,
Sure.
but I think he's the main guy, all right? He's the main guy we need to talk to.
Well, I'm happy to speak with him about this and show him this presentation.
We have passed some ordinances while the signs are all over the beaches, and the state law says you're supposed to stay off the beach. Again,
It is a state law.
of course, we may need some support from the state for this sheriff to support this in a stronger way, because he's already said before it's hard to enforce speed limits on the beach. He doesn't have the manpower to do that, or the technical equipment that he needs.
Well, we're here to be a resource, and we're out there, we're able to, offer as much support as we can. We're in favor of making sure that we continue these conversations, and we're able to make this part of our culture, that this is something that visitors need to understand when they come to our beaches. These are beaches that we respect, and we respect our dunes. And, it's a privilege to drive on beaches. There's not a lot of places where you can drive on beaches, and there's ways you can do it safely without endangering children or families or wildlife. There are ways you can drive safely and enjoy the beach, and that's what we're asking. We're asking for, better and consequences. If you don't give consequences, this behavior and this type of culture is not going to change. People just are going to come down here and do what they want to do. And it's unfortunate for the community here that loves this place. And I'm not even a resident here, and I spend more time here than I do in my home parish because I love this place. So we want to make sure that this is a place that is respected.
I know I spoke with the sheriff, and what he would like to do is if we get more monies in, with these LNGs, whatever else. I know he wants to do he would like to have a beach, enough areas where he could have like a beach patrol or something like that. Now, I know he's in the process of going to do something like that. They're out there a lot on weekends.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people.
And we've noticed that it's not just holiday weekends where we need the assistance. It's every summer weekend that has very nice weather.
He usually has
The crowds are very,
guys out there.
yeah, the crowds are
Now, they
nice.
can't be all day, they ride,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we understand that public safety comes first. We're not saying to put the birds first, but it's something that we need to do that, because it doesn't just protect the birds. Those dunes are our lifeline. That's what keeps our communities safe from natural disasters.
On another note, on different birds, I had some co-workers, Scott, I want to talk to her about trying to get our ducks back in here.
Yeah.
So we
place.
can try to get them ducks back.
You get a lot more help
So I will work on
with
that
that.
too.
Yeah, you get a lot more help with the ducks.
Yeah.
But, a lot of hunters down there.
One point I want to make is that all those beaches, most of them completely belong to the state. They're all public beaches, and they don't all have access by foot. So if you close down the traffic on all the beaches, there's a lot of beaches that don't have access, so that means it would be a problem for people if we start denying them access to the beach. So we're trying to not do that.
Yeah.
but
And
we're
I'm not
going
here to state that. I'm here to state, let's work on the existing laws we have, let's enforce those and change the mindset and change the culture so that people respect it and so that we don't go to that point where we have issues like that.
How many acres, Katie, is off Redmond Beach that's fenced off? Is that about 5 acres or more? That's
It's on the east side,
East.
yeah, there's a small section that's protected by, that's state land, and that's protected also by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and NWF. It's an identified waterbird rookery, so it's a spot that is protected by lots of agencies for wildlife. It's not just Audubon.
One last point I'm gonna make, and this doesn't have anything with access on the beach, but it has to do with birds. I work for a company who's very eco-aware, and we got to the point where we had birds nested in gravel parking lots. So they go out and they put stakes, while we do everything we could not to stay out for accident. And we also have closed circuit TV, so we watch it. We watch the coyote go from nest to nest. We have an egg out there, okay, or every little bird. Has the state or the Audubon Society thought about predation with no more traffic going on or anything? Predation is bad.
Yeah, it's definitely a concern, and having that unbalanced predator pressure is something that we are working on. I mean, we can't manage for that, but other agencies can, and having the evidence and doing this kind of work is further supports that, need for managing predators. And birds, just like you said, using gravel, I mean, that's out of desperation. These birds are losing their habitat so much that they're moving inland, and they're using rooftops, and they're using gravel parking lots because we can't respect the dunes. And so that right there is alarming, that birds are using gravel rooftops and gravel parking lots, and putting themselves even more in danger because of the parking lots. So
I like to reiterate, this is a lot, most of this is on state property. And wildlife and fisheries, they do a great job. I know they're short-handed, just like our police here in Cameron Parish. I feel that they could actually do a little bit more, maybe step up and do a little bit more enforcement.
yeah,
Because they have the right,
so they
especially on state property. So that might be something you might want to hit on as well, talking.
they're part of that petition letter in front of you there too, that we are calling upon them to be a part of this, be a part of this support.
Any other comments from us?
Thank you.
Okay.
If not, we have a card here for Bobby Miller.
Yes.
Speak. If you want to come up. Thank you.
I don't think it works.
Good work.
Speak loud.
Hey, well, thank y'all for allowing me to speak this morning. Just a quick background, and then I would like to submit a verbal request to the jury, if that's okay to do it like that. But my name is Bobby Miller. My wife Nelman and I have had property at Rutherford Beach since 2008. We're very active at Rutherford Beach. We started the Rocky Rutherford Beach nonprofit. We raise funds, we sponsor and coordinate the July 4th celebration that we just had, the Labor Day celebration, 2 fishing tournaments a year. We hope to, depending on what the breakwaters do to sailboating, we would like to restart the sailboat races that used to take place out there back in the mid-80s. We participate in the annual formal beach week, the third Saturday of September. We participate in every time they have grass planting. I mean, we're there for that. So, long story short, we take a lot of pride in Rutherford Beach. I mean, it's like I mean, I'm a non-resident also, but it's like our second home. I mean, we love it there. We've been down here for 3 months now on a work break. We do at least twice a week, we do what I call a mini beach week. So we're very active, and, as you might expect, I'm very quick to defend Rutherford Beach from negative publicity. There's been, just this season alone, I mean, it happens every year, but just this season, there's been 2 stories, and KPLC and the Audubon Society, calling out Rutherford Beach for incidents that happen on private property west of Rutherford Beach. It's not even Rutherford Beach, but we're getting the negative publicity for it. Now, and that really aggravates me to no end, but I mean, that's not why I'm here. So the second story, which was this week, I mean, this happened the last, I mean, it might have been Monday, Tuesday it came out. Again, negative publicity for Rutherford Beach, nesting areas that were on private property west of Rutherford Beach. And so I contacted, and Katie, I guess can I use your name, or
Yeah, go ahead.
just to refer to all of them? I contacted Katie and asked her as a personal favor to me that when her and KPLC do these negative stories, to at least, please, mention the success of the east nesting area. You know, give us a little balance, so throw us a bone or something, you know. Well, I mean, she told me that basically there was no success to report at the east nesting area. I said, well, if that's the case, I mean, I thought there always had been. I mean, it's there taking up space, preventing the public from using it. I thought it was a success. She indicated there were no success stories from the east nesting area to report. I said, well, in that case, I want to make an attempt to have that 5 acres roughly, I mean, 4 to 6 acres, whatever it is, reopened for public use. I mean, we really, really need, the beach going public really needs more camping and parking space. I mean, the crowds have increased, for whatever reason. I mean, that's up for debate. I mean, they really increased this year, probably because so many things, other things were shut down, the ball games, the travel ball, and all that stuff. So, I mean, people flock to Rutherford Beach. Anyway, the crowds are very large this year. We badly need additional parking and camping areas. So I told Katie that, and that's when she told me that the DNR, the Louisiana Department of Wildlife Fisheries, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services would all have to be involved in that it would have to go to a public hearing, and public comment, and, which, I mean, that's fine if that's the case. I mean, I don't mind contacting all these people and starting the ball rolling. But going back to the, 2 or 3 years ago, I know some of the jury is here now that was there then when Mr. Doxey removed, or what's the right word, he pulled his request to close Rutherford Beach to vehicular traffic. The jury, I think Mr. Dupont, Mr. Fountain, I know Mr. Gray and Mr. McGee weren't there. Mr. Paul, I think he was there. I know Mr. William was there. That's the first time you and I met. I'll go out there because I think the compromise was to put in this more permanent fence along the nesting area. And you might recall, Mr. Doxey wanted to put it out like in the middle of the road, and calmer heads prevailed and said, no, let's move it over here to where it is now. So based on that, it looked to me like that was a local decision made on the spot about where the fence would go. It wasn't a DNR, Louisiana Department of Wildlife, U.S. Fisheries decision. I mean, yes, that's state property, but it's leased by the parish for the recreation of the people. You know, I think the parish retain some say over what goes on out there. And I mean, that was an obvious sign that, I mean, that was a local decision, like I say, made on the spot to move the fence over out of the road. So, having said all that, our request is that, I mean, if we need to go to all those agencies, I'll be glad to do all the footwork and then come back to y'all some more in the future when I have it. But I mean, my request is to reopen that 5 acres for public use. I mean, because it's not a success story, we desperately need more space. And it appears that, I mean, a local decision could be made. So that's my request, to open that up. You know, if that's too big a chunk all at once, you know, if we could move the fence further north. And I advise y'all to come out here to see, I mean, the campers are getting, like Katie said, I mean, we all know about the coastal erosion. Campers are getting pushed from the seas, but they're stopped by the birds. I mean, we need more space, you know, I mean,
Well, I think Mr. Doctor might have been worried, but I don't think he's worried much about the birds as much as the coastal erosion. That's why the fence was put out there to keep people off the dunes. Not so much for the birds, I believe it was for the dunes to keep people off. So if we go back and move the fence back, no matter if the birds are there or not, we're tearing up the dunes again, which is stopping coastal erosion that we hope.
well, you know, that's one position. I mean, you have to argue, I mean, you have to really something that would help a lot of people if we identify where the dunes are and stop this. So, I mean, the dunes don't go all the way to Roman place, but, I mean, if they stop at some point. Nobody wants to camp on the dunes, we're wanting to camp behind the dunes.
Well, that's
I don't know if private property is.
That's private.
No, that's all state.
No, the 5 acres is in the lease, the Rutherford Beach lease.
Well, I don't know exactly what the
That was
property
weird.
is, but like on Hollow Beach, for example, that area, they own land in the Gulf. So anything the state doesn't claim from mean high tide belongs to somebody. So when you get off the dunes, which you're not supposed to be on anyway, when you get off the dunes, you're on private property, and most of my district.
Yeah, but
Maybe Holly Beach, but this over here is part of the Rutherford Beach, the 1998 lease agreement between the Cameron Parish and the state. That 5 acres is part of that lease. I mean,
I think that was the old Mermentau, and they filled up, so that's why I think.
it's against the whole world.
Yeah, the old Mermentau.
But I know, the guys that went out there to pick trash up and stuff and filled in deals, trash dispensers, said it's gonna erode it some more. So they was telling me, man, we should have to move the fence back so you could have access to be able to have more room out there. But now the rocks are coming, maybe it'll.
the rocks are coming, and hopefully we'll see some good out of that, but I mean, I don't think it's, you know, who knows? Somebody knows, I guess has a better idea than I do, but I don't expect it to build up for a year or two.
We can't check in to see what it would take to work on move that fence or do away with that, but it's gonna.
Move it back some.
We find out.
I mean, I can assure you that bird sanctuary, the East Bird Sanctuary, is not on private property. It goes, it's part of the lease, it goes up against Roman's fence. Roman's fence is where the private property starts. I mean, it's all laid out in the drawing, it's in the lease package with the state. And it was open for a long time. You know, it closed recently, a while, how long ago it closed. I mean, the permanent fence or semi-permanent fence was put in there 2 or 3 years ago when the effort was to close the beach completely.
We'll take that under advisement and we encourage you to come and check with us to see where we go.
Okay, and I invite, we're on the beach. I'm gonna be down there another month or so. If anybody wants to come out, I mean, I'll be glad to ride around and show y'all what I think, and what, and where I got the map there. So yeah, we appreciate the consideration. The people, I would say badly need more space. It's just people on top of each other. And just these clothing, let me say, I mean, I'm not a bird lover. I told this to somebody else the other day. But I respect birds and I respect bird lovers. I mean, we raised our granddaughter, she flags off the killdeer nest at our place, so we don't run over with a lawnmower. So I don't want anybody to think I'm up here as some kind of anti-bird crusade. We're just looking around, I think there has to be some compromise between humans and birds, you know?
They balance.
All right, thank y'all very much.
Thanks, Bob.
Mr. Pruitt, it was your discussion having to do with the birds, or is it,
Brothers
come
for
up
Beach,
talk?
Brothers for Beach per se, birds too.
If we wait, can they speak on this too?
Good morning.
Morning.
Well, I have to say, Katie stole all my thunder this morning. She said exactly what I wanted to say, and she did it in the best way to do it. Show her. She's one of our heroes here. And she comes, she gives people that love the bird, that love the beach, that love this area, someone that can defend them. And she's a pretty tough lady. I'll have to say, pretty tough lady. Let me give you an instance. She was down the road from before. They had set up some tables and stuff, and talked to people that would come by about the bird. One person come by on the 18th vision, cussing at her, telling her to go home, F.U. bird lady. Now, it's got to be pretty tough to still love this area, these people, these people that way. And I really respect her for it. Another thing I want to bring up too is about this 4th of July bash we have down there. Some people say it's just a great thing. It's a wonderful thing. Best thing ever happened. I live there. I worry about this parish. I worry about the people in it. Hopefully, people came and rubbed each other, children running back and forth into each other's campers, back and forth, round and around. And, which is a good thing, normal. But we're not normal. And I'm thinking that hopefully there won't be too many people who come ill and die from this party. And to add insult to injury, parish equipment was used at that party. And I very much object to that. It should be used for our local organization, period. Nobody else. Okay, I didn't get to sign your petition.
You got light plants? One person that put light plants?
Yes.
We use that for Fur Festival, we use it for everything.
Yes. Well, we don't use it for, non-resident groups.
That was not, that was residential people that lived there. People from the parish.
It was used in the wrong way, for the wrong purpose. That's all I have to say.
I'll tell you what, I wish I'd had vacation, I'd have took vacation, I'd have been there with them.
Thank you, Mr. Bridges.
You have.
That's more
Did
trouble.
you,
Okay, can I say something to that?
did y'all make a complaint to the office? Did you make a complaint to our administrator?
About that?
Yes.
No, sir, I just found out about this the other day,
Well, you need to make a formal complaint
to the administrator.
and to our administrator. That's the proper
Okay.
way to do it. I would say.
Okay. No other comments, we'll move on to number 4. Unbalanced.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
It's that time of the year again, good news, of course, good news. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
We are coming up on renewal time again on September the 1st for the medical, the life, and the dental and vision. The good part of the news is the dental and vision and the life have a rate pass, which means no rate increase, no change in rates, no change in benefits, for at least the next 12 months. So I feel good there. I think everyone has a packet in front of them like this. Somebody probably had my one that I wrote notes on, so if you see some script.
Thank you.
You didn't.
No, I don't have
I was gonna say, you were the script. This packet was put together and it has a lot of good information in it. It's gonna have more in there that we're gonna have time to cover this morning. But by all means, stop. If there's anything in there that you see that you want more detail or discussion on, let me know. But I'm just going to, for time's sake, kind of go through this in a little quick fashion. The first tab that you're looking at is the official notification to the parish on the renewal from Blue Cross. We have a 9% rate increase that's coming up September 1st. No change in benefits, but there is going to be a 9% rate increase. And this tab details out some of the compliance issues that the health plan needs to comply with, which we'll put in the manual or the booklet that we put out to the employees. We're going to revise that. And by the way, if there's anything in the booklet, I think everyone saw the booklet we came out with the first part of the year. If there's anything you want to add to that booklet, by all means, let us know. We're going to update that booklet on these changes that are going to take effect September 1st. The next tab, and I guess one question that comes up is, why are we getting a rate increase? Last year, we had about a 5% rate increase. The year before that, we had about a 5.3% rate increase. Over the years, we've averaged about 7% because we did have about 13, almost 14% rate increase a number of years ago. So that brought that average up. But the trend has been pretty much 7, 8%, just about where you are now, which I think is good when you compare it to the claims. And that's what this next tab is showing you, is the claims versus the premium. And this past June, we keep a running 12 months from Blue Cross. The last 12 months, ending June 30th, the claims that were paid out is just a little bit over the amount of premium collected. If you look at, and I apologize for the small figures, but if you look on that second page in that second tab, which is that chart there, the blue and white chart, if you'll notice under the column where it says earned premium, that 12-month period ending June 30th, the premium collected was $2,325,000. All the way to the right of that same chart, claims paid out $2,352,000. So they're actually paying out more at that point over that last 12 months than they're actually collecting premium. So it's not good for business to continue in that direction. So that's one reason why that 9% rate increase took effect, or is taking effect. The chart right below that top chart was previous 12 months, and it was a little bit better back then. But we do have spikes in claims, and that's what, if you notice the next page on the large claims, there are some large claims in there. Those are the claims over 25,000. So occasionally we do have some spikes where somebody is fairly ill. Any questions at this point? So when we saw the 9% rate increase, we went out for bids or went out for quotes from other insurance companies. And I've got one page, which has been the first page that you're looking at on the next tab, but actually it's the second page. That second page is showing that we went out to United Healthcare. They came in a little bit higher than what the rate increase is going to be. The next column is showing the option 6 that you're looking at is showing the company that's called CCMSI. That is the Police Jury Association that we went out to. They came in just about where United Healthcare is. They're actually higher. We did a a quote, or declined the quote from Humana, which in a way is almost good news right now. Aetna also declined the quote. So those were the options that we went to, or the companies that we went to for some quotes. The renewal with Blue Cross is actually better than anything else we came back with, or the other companies came back with. So with that being said, staying with Blue Cross, if we don't make any changes in the benefits, then there is going to be a 9% rate increase. If we do want to make some changes in the benefits, that first page in that tab is giving you some options to look at compared to the current rate. My feeling when you're looking at these choices, or let me go back. I mentioned to Katie that we have actually, there's 185 different choices as far as changing benefits. So rather than being here for the next 2 weeks deciding out of 185 choices, I kind of picked out some that were going to affect the benefit the least and hopefully not cost as much. But I feel like option 3 changes the benefits slightly, and it does increase your premium compared to the 9% increase of 4.7, so it's almost like cutting the increase in half. But that would be my choice. If you're going to make any changes from the benefits, option 3 is a good choice, I think, as far as benefits versus premium. I know you didn't have a whole lot of time to look at these options, but that is where we're at now. The other companies, as I mentioned, are not making any changes on premiums or benefits. And the last tab in this booklet covers a lot of add-on benefits, no cost, but I think good benefits, and one that I think a lot of people in this parish or that are covered under this group could actually benefit from is the what they call the Blue Care. They can actually go online or on their phone and go face-to-face with the physician if they need to see a physician. There is a charge of $39 to do that, but that's an easy way, cheap way of seeing a physician, and these times, nobody wants to go into doctor's offices or anywhere else these days. But that's a good way to do that. The other choices that are other benefits are actually going online and looking at your claims. You can call, get a PIN number. I don't know if anyone has done that on their claims, on their health insurance, but you can actually go online, look at your claims as they're being processed, and see where you stand on your deductibles without having to wait for an explanation of benefits to come in the mail to see where you stand on your deductibles and all that. Any questions on anything at this point?
Where does it show, or does it show in here, what's gonna, the changes, how it would weigh out on the employees and the jury?
Premium wise, you talking about cost wise?
Does it show in the book?
It doesn't.
Okay.
And we didn't, I don't think we did that because we did determine which plan we were going to do.
It was in the email that I sent you, so if, for the renewal, if you just accept the renewal, it's gonna cost an employee an average of $120 a year extra. And it'll cost the jury $165,000 a year extra.
Okay. A year?
A year.
Mr. Irvin, what is are we losing benefits? We took some away from option 3 and option 1?
Good question. If you're looking at the benefit page that we've got, the highlighted areas are showing you what's actually going to change. The blue highlight.
What tab is that on?
That's tab 3. Option 3, the change that takes place, I think that's going to affect some people. Because, before I forget, these changes, if we make these changes, are gonna take effect September 1st. So the change on option 3 compared to what you currently are covered by now is the out-of-pocket. Right now, your out-of-pocket is $2,500. So all your benefits, counting your deductible, your co-pays, your co-pays on your drugs, everything included, once you hit $2,500, Blue Cross is picking up 100%.
Right.
Okay? That would move to 4,000.
I'm talking about benefits.
That's what I'm talking about.
I mean, we're picking up a little money, but are we losing any of our benefits across the board?
Yeah, that's what.
Oh, your copay wouldn't change, your deductible
No, I ain't talking about
wouldn't
pay, I'm talking about.
change. None of that.
None of that.
The only thing that would change would be your out-of-pocket.
Money.
Right.
That's all I need to know.
And that option would cost about $50 on average per employee per year, and the jury $60 per year.
On which one? Free?
For that option 3 he's talking about. And the only thing that would change is the out-of-pocket maximum. So you could potentially have some employees that right now have met their out-of-pocket maximum, they're not paying anything, and then if they get treatment October, November, December, they'll have to start paying their co-pays.
They would do it anyhow if we stayed where we're at now, right?
No, if we stay where we're at, if they met it, they're done for the year. They
All
don't
right.
have to pay anything out-of-pocket.
Any other questions?
You're good?
Okay, now,
We need
is
direction.
the employees satisfied with this insurance, how it's working?
I haven't heard any complaints, Mr. Irvin, it's the majority of the complaints we have in.
Anybody complaining or urban?
You know, we've had some glitches from something, you know, somebody wondering about something being covered, not covered, and it's just sometimes a matter of time before the process takes place and they're covered or paid. So that's basically all it is. Not the nightmare we had a few years ago. But,
I haven't heard no complaints about the coverage we have. Matter of fact, I've heard some people say how good of a coverage we have.
Well-
Maybe they were referencing looking outside the box because of these times we're going through.
And
One
I
thing-
can let the jury know personally, when I have trouble getting stuff, Ms. Regina is on it and gets it done.
we have a lady in our office, Mary knows what we're talking about, Regina Wowak. She takes care of claims, she works claims all day long, and if there's a problem, she gets on it, she follows through with it and takes care of it. Mary's talked with Regina a number of times. One thing I wanted to mention yesterday, just so happened, I drove to the parish and I stopped, and there was a young man cutting grass with the police jury. And so I was looking for a good place to bring my grandkids to go fishing, so I asked him, I said, is that wharf, pretty busy? And he said, well, I don't know. He said, I don't ever see it on weekends. But he said, I've got to ask you something. I thought, well, I opened the can of worms by mentioning that I was root insurance, because he recognized that when I mentioned it. But he said, I went to the clinic near Brown's grocery store and had my $30 copay, but I got a $15 refund from him. And I said, well, I said, that's a good problem. But I found out, I went back to the office and checked on it. The clinic is can't think of the name of the clinic right now. But anyway.
Dr. Lincoln,
What is-
Dr. Lincoln. It's at St. Pat's.
Yes, and they're part of the Blue, but that particular company is contracted with Blue Cross, and they will reimburse you half of your copay. So that's
That's
just
good to know.
Yeah, that's good to know. And I found out about you. But there are a few, they're called Quality Blue. It's a network of inside a network, I guess you could say, of physicians or providers, that if you went to those providers, your benefits will be better.
Anything else, guys?
Well, before we sit down, just to be clear that we need some direction from you guys with this part. We're not changing companies, we're not changing insurance companies, this is just about the money. Do you want to assume the renewal rates and cover the increase in cost and have the employees have to pay the $150 per year, and you
would all increase, but the total cost wouldn't increase. So the payroll deductions for the employee and the total cost to the jury year wouldn't change at all. So those are the options. If you feel like you're ready to,
Yeah, I'm in favor of staying just where we do it now.
do y'all feel like y'all are prepared to vote on this today? We could do it as an add-on. If you would rather wait, we can always vote next month.
I would say leave it the same and we take up the cost because every year, my 12 years of being there years ago, every time we try to give them a raise, insurance will go up. You know, I think every time they'll give us a raise, they'll take more out of my check for insurance. So I mean, so this is all like, give them a raise.
I think to answer the question, I think we're agreement enough that we'll keep it like it is, so we can add it on if you want.
Okay, so we'll do it as an add-on. That way you can get Mr. Irvin the paperwork and the letter of intent so he can start getting the renewals together.
Everybody good with that?
Good with it.
Thank you, Mr. Irvin. So, do you have anything else?
Just let me know, my name and phone number's in that book, so if you have any questions about anything in that book or anything during the year, feel free to call me.
So, now that you've decided on the current employees, this also impacts your retirees. Right now, your retirees, if you don't have 30 years of service, the police jury pays $250 towards your premium just for the employee. If you have 30 years of service, you pay 100%. So every year, the rates have increased, and we haven't adjusted that $250 amount in 5 or 6 years now. So your retirees are paying more every year as you accept the renewal the way it is.
But would that be a separate vote?
Well, that's what I'm getting, so it'd be a separate vote, but since we're talking about that, I just wanted to bring that up. And we don't have to vote on that today if you want to consider it, but right now, that's where you stand, $250. So on a retiree right now, that's gonna cost them the 100% of the insurance increase, the retiree's gonna have to pay, because you're not raising your $250 cap. For those employees that don't have 30 years of service, you only have about 4 employees right now with 30 years of service. But everyone else that's retirees right now that's on this plan, that's pretty much anyone that's under the age of 65 retired, they're gonna see an increase in cost. So you could either consider increasing the cap from 250, or you could just say, change the policy to, which would only impact about 10 retirees right now for a few years. You could just say that if you are eligible to retire from the parish, we will pay 100% of your insurance.
And how much,
Every scenario that I've ran, I took current employees that would retire, and because when they hit the age 65, they automatically qualify for the Medicare, Medicaid insurance policy, and that runs about $170 a month. So once they hit that 65 mark, you're paying 100% of those retirees' insurance anyways. It's only those 55 to 65 retirees that it impacts. We only have a few people right now, 3, that it would impact, but then you have a large group of employees that may be transferred from the state retirement system, they're parish employees now, and they won't ever have 30 years of credible service with the police jury to earn that 100% of their insurance retirement benefit, but they would be able to retire at 55. So they're gonna be paying close to $700 a month to retire. That's all
Look
most
at
of
these
your
juries
people can't
fault
afford
that
to
they didn't
retire.
work for us for 30 years, you know what I'm saying?
They're eligible
That's
to
right.
retire,
That was one of the things that we did when we made this a few years ago. If you was with us 30 years, we gonna pay 100%.
Right.
You know, so I don't think it's fair to let a guy come in from the state or whoever, work 10 years, retire, we pay 100% of his retirement. I mean, it's insurance. I don't think that's,
And that's fine if you don't think it's fair. It just, from
Yeah, I
a
don't. Me
fiscal standpoint, the scenarios I ran with current employees, you either broke even or you saved money, because those employees that were older, they would retire and you would replace them with someone younger that was entry-level salary versus someone with 25, 30 years. And so you were either breaking even
So you
or
still-
saving money in the scenario.
so you studied this?
I did, I ran
You
the
did.
scenarios, and we can get into it some more if you want.
Yeah,
I
we
can
did
send
do
it
that
all to
before
you to
we-
start considering.
yeah.
Yeah, just citizens.
And we need a good recommendation from what you, how you
it's kind of catching us off guard, so send us some stuff, let us look at it, and we'll come and get it again at another time.
So we're gonna delay this,
For like
but
August.
No, just second one, this is second.
No, the first one is just to do an add-on to renew the current Blue Cross coverage.
Oh, okay, it
With
was
the
something
increase.
separate.
This is something separate.
And then for August, if you want to take action, either you want a policy change, or if you want to increase the cap, or if you don't want to take any action at all, we would have that set for next month.
Okay.
In time for the September 1 premium increase.
Appreciate your time, and I do appreciate your business over the last number of years. Thank you for your trust.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, I throw something back at it. You've always been there for us, and, you know, I've been here a long time, working for the parish, and then now as a visitor, and Mr. Irvin's always been there to knock out any kind of issue we had, help shoot us straight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, next item would be our audited financial statement. Brian?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm here from, represent the Dragon Castle and Gallery, to present the audit report. We performed an audit for the year ended December 31st, 2019. I've got a copy of the report in front of you, who care to follow along. The first thing I'll call your attention to is on page 14, is the independent auditor's report. Got an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. We didn't have any issues that required to make any material adjustments, and we believe the financial statements are presented fairly. If you go to page 24, this is the balance sheet. For the general fund, you've got total assets of $13,912,000 and total liabilities of $156,245. You have a net fund balance of $11,962,000, which is that's a good net position to have for the amount of assets that you have. I'll call your attention to one of the notes. It's note number 15 on subsequent events. We did add a note about the COVID-19 that we can't make any kind of assessment of what the future, because we don't know what's going to happen in the future with this disease. On page 103, this is the statement of findings and question calls. We had no findings this year on the audit and financial statements. And finally, we had to perform some agreed upon procedures from the legislative auditor, where we had to look at specific items. We only had one finding in there, and it was under the ethics section. Basically, when employees perform a certification for the ethics, they have to sign saying that they reviewed the policy. Well, didn't have that on file, but that should be fairly easy to do. And with the agreed upon procedures, if you get them all, if we have 1 year where they've all been done properly, we can actually take that part out of the audit. So that's really it. It's a clean opinion. Have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment. This kind of stuff doesn't happen by accident. Thank you, staff, for all the hard work that they do, keeping us in mind and keeping our budgets and everything where they need to be.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you for working with us through the COVID. We had to do a lot through email, and it was back and forth and kind of difficult year, but we appreciate that as well.
All right, Darrell Williams.
Okay, so I guess I'm gonna take that one, or are you taking it, Amy? Daryl was unable to be here today, but he did all the research, he prepared a spreadsheet for us. It is time for us to levy our millage rates for the 21 tax year. So what you levy today today is what people will be paying their taxes on in December. That will be due December 31st of this year. We went through and just similar to what we did back after the reassessment year 4 years ago, we sat down, we looked at our surplus funds, we looked at our audit, talked to our auditors, make sure we were in a good financial position. And because things are so undetermined right now with the assessment and everything, we decided we wanted to roll back our millages as much as we thought we could responsibly roll back. We're probably gonna have to eat to some of our surplus funds, but we thought it was the best thing to do just to help save the taxpayers some money. Right now, with the reassessment, a lot of people's taxes are gonna go up. So we rolled back, we're recommending to roll back all of our parish-wide millages at 5.5 mills, which is about 5 cents on the dollar, close to 6 cents on the dollar. So on $10,000, we're talking about $500. So that's what the recommendation is from Darrell Williams and myself and our parish treasurer that we met yesterday.
Did you have a schedule of that so we can look at that? The one question I would have is each, I didn't see it, each taxing district may not be in as good a position as the other, so we might want to take that on case by case, maybe not complete.
Well, we just looked at parish-wide. We didn't recommend any changes to any of the recreation districts, fire districts, water districts, that is their decision. A lot of them didn't feel like they could afford to roll it back, so the jury just what we're recommending is if you could just roll it back. We know that we're probably gonna have to use our surplus funds, and we're okay with that, but, next year when we have a better handle on how much money is gonna actually be coming in, how much the assessment's gonna impact your taxpayers, we have a better idea of what that's gonna cost. We can always increase and levy more next year to recoup some of those funds to balance the budget. But we felt like we could responsibly collect enough money off of these mills, pay our bills, and only eat into our surplus funds just a little bit. We have a pretty good cushion right now. The auditor just reported that. Please don't take it back, Ryan. So we felt like this would be pretty safe. Now, you're talking about your library, pulling it down a good $2 million. They have a $3.5 million surplus right now. And last year, we did have a balanced budget, except with the exception of the courthouse and jail tax. We had surplus off of what we levied last year. So we're just cutting back our millages a little bit compared to last year's, where we will maybe either balance our budget or we'll eat to our surplus, but it's not gonna be more than 25%. And if we need to levy more next year to balance the budget and get a little bit more to replenish our surplus funds, then we can. But this year, it's just one time. We can always increase it next year if we break.
It's our job, believe me, I'm not for taxes. We want to roll our taxes back as much as possible, but I pay them too. But we also have to be fiscally responsible to these districts, and we don't want to put them in a burden, because I expect all of them to roll back again next year. Because the second time around, they should not have any deficits. There should be some surplus, and they should all go back in. So I don't want to get ahead of the game, anticipating a new appraisal from the tax collector.
Now, we're not recommending rolling back our general fund, because our general funds are our only fund that's unrestricted. We can spend it on anything. And so every district, DA, judge, court, sheriff, anytime anybody needs anything that they can't afford, they come to us, and we have to pay it out of that general fund. So we didn't want to touch the general fund, because if they're in a bind, then they're gonna come to us, and if we're already shorthanded, it's gonna put some pressure on everyone. So we didn't touch the general fund, but the funds that we felt like we could roll back on, those are the ones we recommended, which is library, the courthouse and jail, the health unit, and garbage. Those are the funds that we felt like we had enough of some reserve funds to tap into if we broke our budget and we had to tap into it. And like I said, it's a lot. $5.5 million is a lot of money.
We just want all our districts out there to understand that, we don't want to build back. We want to operate, we want to have enough funds to operate and have a little surplus for an emergency or something like that. But once you get to that point where you got enough surpluses that you can roll back those taxes, we need to do that. And then the next year, if you find out you went the wrong direction or something, you could roll it back up. And so I feel like,
They're easy to roll down and hard to roll up. You guys feel comfortable enough with the information that you have to be able to make a decision?
I just got one question. I see Cameron's got two taxes equaling up to about $300,000. Huh? Yeah, but Grand Chenier, you know, we have one at 84 versus 200,000. We got as many places as Cameron's got out, you know, and they didn't roll their taxes back. What's the deal? Did you check anything?
I'll talk to Tim.
You know, Creole's even getting less.
Yeah, we can't afford a Creo.
Yeah.
To do anything,
But does Cameron really need $200,000 a year to operate when we're doing the same thing they're doing for 84? Do you?
I'm on that board, we can roll some of that back.
I thought so.
About the new fire truck.
We don't want to get you in a bind.
We got the money for the fire, we can roll some back, I'm not saying roll it all the way back, but we had the second tax because we couldn't afford to keep the firemen and it took that long to get it in there. My opinion only.
Your suggestion, have you had these conversations, things like that?
I haven't personally talked to, did you talk to Mr. Darrell Williams? Darrell is working on this, I'm sorry he's not here
No, he
today.
hasn't been to a fire board.
But if you guys feel like you can roll it back, we can adjust it.
How long do we have to get to everybody and get back to you? This afternoon?
We needed to levy our taxes today.
Okay.
I mean, you are the ones that decide what the millages for the fire
But
district.
Dean, what about what y'all got in the county?
Yeah, they just got some money, y'all didn't get money, Dean?
200,000?
Huh?
We have balanced our budget and we have a little reserve.
We should have talked about this a while back, not just
Yeah.
do it today.
That's what I'm just asking. Well, what you think you got in cash? I mean, you know, in your reserve?
That's kind of a big question, man.
The 200,000 kind of rings a bell. That's what we had brought in.
So you got a year's budget, basically.
and that's Cameron.
That's in
Yeah, that's
here.
just Cameron.
Yeah, they got.
When we did the second election, it was to meet the firemen's pay and all of that. We might could.
Actually, when they couldn't afford the full-time firemen, they were gonna pass the tax to keep them, but we had to let them go temporarily. And that's when Timmy DuPont came in, and he actually brought the fire rating from a
Yeah,
10
he
to,
did better than what we had.
what is it, a 4 or
It's a
a 5?
Yes.
So I think they're making the decision just to keep Timmy and not worry about full-time
Right.
firemen right
That's
now.
right.
Since they're doing
They got
a
cost
better
security.
job now.
And just a comment for Timmy's sake,
Yeah.
that's exceptional for a volunteer fire department.
Yes.
Exceptional.
He is an excellent choice for a fire chief.
I'm just, Dee Dee, I'm just wondering, because we have bought a new used fire truck.
Two of them.
And two of them,
They get two.
and I just want
We
to know
had
how.
budgeted 80,000 for that, we got
Got
260.
Can we pass the villages on all but the ones we really need to discuss?
No, I think
No, we have to do a special meeting prior to the deadline. We have
What
to
is
know
the
all
actual
of them.
deadline, end of the month?
The end of the, yeah, July 31st.
I mean, it just raised an alarm to me because everybody else is operating at that.
That way. And all we do is today. So I'm saying is we might want
I
to
did talk
have a
to
special
Timmy.
meeting.
On the first year you collect your tax,
You're not voting until 2, so we have time to call. it.
Yeah.
Okay.
on the first year you collect your tax, can you roll it back?
Have a special meeting.
We'll give Timmy one.
The new tax or the old tax?
The
I mean,
new.
if we're gonna go out, you know, if we're gonna lower on everybody, we need to see what.
Right.
You know, if you can't make it, you can't make it, but if you can, we need to.
Well, we can every year by rolling their taxes back in that fire department. They just never want to roll their taxes back. Cameron, look at the fire department, I mean, if they got excess money, let's roll it back. You know, even if it's just one meal or something, just to show face that everybody's trying to cut to save money here.
Agree, agree.
You know, but this Cameron fire tax only impacts Cameron residents, and the people that actually pass the tax. So, I mean, that's who we need to talk to, is the taxpayers in Cameron. Now, the Parish-wide ones, that impacts everyone equally, but this one
Right. Is that if you can cut it back, roll it back, roll it back.
If you got a year, if you got a year's worth of supply money, you know,
They've got to take.
And this is something, you set the example this year with your parish-wide taxes. Next year, maybe these other smaller entities will follow suit because you set the example. So we can't do cutting one this year. And that'd be something he gives us time next year to start talking.
Yes,
Daryl has been working with all these districts. He's been going to all the meetings that he can, trying to explain it to them, to roll back.
yeah, because wait when they get their taxes on their houses and stuff,
Yeah.
you know, they're gonna be
I
hollering.
mean, it's a reassessment year, so everyone's taxes are gonna go up across the board.
In
It's
some
been 4
areas-
years since people have, since you've been.
There, I was explaining, some areas, homes are sold for a lot of money, so that little area, their taxes going to the roof.
When it's a dozen half a year, with the construction, and everything, so off the property for age. So, and they're gonna use a comparable sales.
Well, we need to show
Yeah,
that we're trying to do everything we can do
Right.
to lower that.
That's right.
I got a question. So, a question I've been asked a lot over this. Okay, when we're gonna start getting the receivables from the taxes from Chenier and Cameron LNG? So, to clarify it, so when are we gonna start getting these monies?
We got a little bit of it last year, and we're gonna get a little bit more this year, but it's staggered out in different phases. And I can give you the exact numbers, I don't have it in front of me. Brian probably could come up here and tell you to the penny what it is. He spent a little time on it, but we can get you that.
Well, that's the question I keep getting asked in public. And so I told them, they get ready to come on road, they can come on the road. Was asking, how is it gonna lower our taxes? You know, so well, whenever the LNG is gonna start paying, if the ambulance board gets 1.5 million, and they start getting $5 million, then you gotta roll your bills back so you can collect that 1.5.
Right, but there's a little bit more that's involved in that. Once they come fully on board, your millage rates that you're authorized to levy are gonna automatically be adjusted down. You're not gonna be able to continue to levy
Right.
8 mil and collect triple what you were collecting 2 years ago on 8 mil. It's gonna be adjusted down, so you're only gonna be allowed to collect what you're currently collecting. So,
Just as a question, we get asked out in
as
public.
those ITs, Cameron Engineer, as they come off the exemption tax roll, yeah, you'll get, maybe year 1 or year 2, you'll see an increase in revenue, but by year 3 and 4, they're gonna push the millage back down. You're only gonna collect the same amount.
Right. Their constitutional thing, if you're collecting the same amount and you start stacking money up, you're not allowed to have so much on hand without adjustment. So there's rules we can follow. We just want to make sure.
There's checks and balances in place to prevent you from doing that. You're not gonna be able to collect 500 million in year 1, and in year 3, collect 1.5 billion dollars. That's not gonna ever happen. It'll always be about 500 million, it might go up to 6, 7, and then they're gonna come in and they're gonna reduce your.
Yeah, I just want to bring it up because that's the questions I'm getting asked out in public at or different places. So, let them know how their taxes will
Get me lower. It's a shame that we're trying to lower the taxes and they're not even going to see it because their assessments are going to go. It's going to be a wash. But at least we do what we can. I just hope they know that we're doing the best we can.
Yeah, these 5 mills are gonna help. It might just keep their taxes steady. They won't see that large increase. And then next year, if we can make it off with this reduced millage, we'll do that. If we have to go up a little bit, then we'll.
We'll get there on that.
I mean, eventually, we're gonna have to re-levy the health unit tax and reestablish that, but we'll lose that. We'll leave it at 0 for now.
Anything else, okay?
So that's on the agenda to vote on this afternoon.
All right. Next item, ODA bill.
Oh, well, that's actually, okay. So we kind of tossed around the idea of what to do with the old DA building. The public defender was in there for a while, the defense officer was in there for a while. Now that everyone's been moved to their permanent offices, it's been vacant for about a year almost. So we had Fenstermaker was interested in maybe leasing it for office space. initial offer was about $10,000 annually. They said that maybe they could offer more, but since they came to light that it was empty, it was vacant, it was only about $10,000 a year we could get for lease. And we did also get a market opinion for that. We ran the numbers, and right now we're paying $26,000 a year just for insurance on that building. And the annual utilities are about $4,000, so we're paying about $30,000 a year for that building to sit vacant.
Make more parking space.
So we either lease it and recoup half of those funds, or we demolish it. We've gotten 2 quotes just to see about what we thought it would cost. Those quotes are coming in around $30,000. Now, once we get in there, if there is asbestos or mold or anything that has to be taken care of, that could easily get over $100,000, which is the initial quotes right now. They think they can demolish it for $30,000.
Yeah, we got various equipment, we can't demolish it.
Well, I would rather have.
Now, if you got asbestos, well, we can't. You gotta get
Yeah,
some-
it's so close to Ms. Jones' private law office, there's gonna be a lot of liability and the risk associated with tearing that down. We're gonna have to go in and build a temporary wall to protect her office while we're demolishing it. So it might be a better idea just to get a third party to come in, insured, to come in and
Yeah,
handle
we
that.
work with liability all the time. We
I'd
work
rather
on
not
roads.
put our parish hands in that predicament of worrying
It's
about,
not, it's not gonna be very difficult because it is a cinder block building, so you can pull it out and it's not gonna be that difficult to demolish.
we've had 2 different contractors come look at it. They both said they thought they could do it responsibly without, and they don't think. And we don't think it is, but that is something that you could get into. Right now, $30,000 to tear it down, or $30,000 in insurance doesn't sound like a big decision, but it could get expensive if they find something environmentally wrong.
You're paying $30,000 a year, and every year that adds up.
Yeah.
So you get rid of it one time and finish that.
I think
It's not on the agenda right now. It's just something that we talked about. We wanted to bring the numbers before you. If you guys want to just take 30 days and let the public, submit comment or not, and then maybe reconsider it for a vote in August, we could do that, or September. If y'all ready to vote on it now, you think it's,
does it have any historical value to it? If it does, get rid of it.
not that I'm aware of.
I guess we put it in,
Yeah.
We say 6,000.
It just don't make good sense for us to spend that
Then
money.
put another storm building, you got to redo it again on that.
Right.
That's why they built it up.
This meeting, y'all do it next meeting.
Yeah.
Add on the demo of it?
Okay, any other questions on that? Move on to number 8. Matthew Keith with Ludwig County.
No, you gotta talk loud.
I'll talk loud for you, Mr. Kirk.
Treat us like a hostile witness.
Thank y'all for having me today. I'm here to go over a settlement that the parish has an opportunity to participate in. This is a environmental, commonly called legacy lawsuit that our firm has been working on since 2013. It involves a 40-acre tract of property in the Grand Lake area on the north side of the Intracoastal. The parish has an aggregate 0.555 acre interest in the 40 acres, which is about 1.3%. The parish acquired it by way of 2 different tax sales by default. No one came and purchased them at the tax sale, so the parish has them now. The parish has not been involved in the lawsuit up to this point. The parish will not be made a party to the lawsuit. The parish simply has the opportunity to participate in the settlement in the lawsuit. At this point, we've settled the case. We represent roughly 80 undivided interest owners in this 40-acre tract, which is kind of crazy, but that's what it is. And we've worked for 7 years on it. We've negotiated at length with the 2 primary defendants, which are Kerr McGee and BP. And so the parish would be receiving an aggregate amount of about $97,000. When I spoke to Ms. Jones yesterday, I had mentioned about $57,000, but I was calculating that after taking our standard fee and expenses out, but we are not charging the parish a fee. We have not sought approval from the Attorney General to represent the parish on the matter. So the parish can participate free of fees and expenses and recover a net of roughly $97,000. The parish will also get indemnity protection in the event there's any issues on the property that need to be addressed, off-site contamination, migration, or anything like that. And all the sampling data on the property has been provided to the state. So the Louisiana Department of Natural Resources will determine if anything needs to be done out there from the EMP activity out there. And if so, part of the settlement is that Kerr McGee is obligated to go do that. And again, I sent this to Ms. Jones and offered her a chance to review the settlement agreements, and I brought her an extra copy as well if she wants to have them for her file.
I would like to have that for my file, and what you will need to do, y'all, is to have me sign off as your counsel, and then I don't charge fees. So that way we don't have to go through getting authority for someone else to represent you. And, we can take money on that adjudicated property because the time for redemption has passed. So I think everything's fine.
Right. Only question I have,
Yes,
I don't know if you're finished or not, but the only question I have, is there anything we need to do and move on and vote on to get this?
Yes. And I prepared a resolution, a draft resolution, which I provided to Ms. Carroll and to Ms. Armature yesterday afternoon. I brought it with me if you want me to go over the resolution now. Mr. Brookhouse and I will not be able to stay for the voting meeting this afternoon. I'm happy to go over it with you, or it's pretty standard resolution.
I'm sure everybody, Ms. Jeanette, will look at it.
If you can just leave me, I'll be able to.
Yes, ma'am, happy to, and I'll give you your copies of the agreements, and I have copies for you all to review as well.
And the money goes directly to that district.
Well, that's above my pay grade. That's for you all to decide. Any other questions, gentlemen? Right. Well, I will leave the copies of both sets with Ms. Jones as well as a draft of the resolution.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, man.
Keep up the good work.
Well, thank you.
Y'all too.
Thank you, Dave.
Appreciate y'all.
All right. With that, Ms. Jenny, I think you have the ring cord.
Yeah, I have, someone sent me the other day a copy of an article from the New Orleans paper that Attorney General Jeff Landry, the headline says, warns Kenner over meeting about controversial Florida contract. They had a meeting over there, they had a couple of problems with the meeting. They weren't letting people record the meeting, they were limiting the people who could speak, the number of people who could speak, which is all things we can't do. But the thing that disturbed me when I read the article is he talked about the mayor or the head of the council made the comment on the record that, well, y'all are all familiar with this information about the contract because I've met with y'all separately. I've met with you in groups of 2 or 3 prior to the meeting to give you information about what was in the contract. And of course, that is something that we have done for a long time. We'll meet with small, I did this last month, met with small groups of y'all about to give you information. And he says in his opinion, well, that's a walking forum, you cannot do that. And the person who did not get the contract can, attack the validity of that vote because it's on the record that you met in small groups outside of the public meeting. So I called them And I said, I tried to find your opinion on Westlawn, I couldn't find it. He said, well, that's because they are worried about the consequences of this, and they didn't issue an official AG opinion. They issued an advisory letter, which I got a copy of today. He says the same thing, and he said this is also based on another opinion we did for the town of Minden, Louisiana, which had the same kind of situation. So that is something that we're going to have to change, is that we're not going to be able to, between agenda and voting meetings, or, you know, we got something we need to talk about today, we're not going to be able to do it that way. We're going to have to discuss things in open meetings, and we're not going to be able to have meetings of small groups broken up less than a quorum. We're going to have all our meetings in the public. Now, what concerns me that I need to talk to y'all today about is that he says in here a couple different ways and a couple different times of both opinions, all discussions about public contracts and public business has to be in the public with a quorum. We have a policy here, also the school board, also the court, of forming committees to deal with a certain area. You know, like the court has a committee to negotiate a particular contract. We have a committee to talk about the dog ordinance. You know, we have different committees in all these public groups to talk about different matters, and then what I believe usually happens is that the committee makes a recommendation to the jury as a whole or the school board as a whole, and then everybody votes on what to do about that. I am concerned that some of the language in here would indicate that we cannot do that. When he talks about all discussion about a public contract has to be in the, you know, in the public realm where people can comment on it. So what I would like to do, and I would like to do this really quick because this is something we're doing all the time, is I would like to write the Attorney General and ask him for an advisory opinion about our committee, our practice of having committees to meet separately, receive information, and then make a recommendation to the entire group as a whole as to what would be done. So I need to know.
It makes it pretty hard to have everybody present to talk about any issue at any time.
And
If we get one person that shows up, if he's not a committee, is that still questionable?
Go ahead and make that recommendation.
His language in here is very broad. I don't know if he intends to do, but he says you should never be discussing public business with less than a quorum. That's it. So that would mean a committee.
They can't talk to my constituents, talk about public stuff. I'm about the gray area here.
Well, I agree, but I think that you know, maybe what needs to happen is that the committee meeting becomes an open meeting.
Yeah, that's what I was just
You know,
going to say.
that I think that maybe the way to remedy this is that committee
Open door
meetings
meeting.
would have to be open to the public.
You know, they get publicized and make it available to the public in so many weeks or whatever.
But, you know,
But don't put some handcuffs on these corporations.
Just to clarify a few things, the committee meetings that you have had the past 5 years that I've been involved, the committees never met and made a recommendation to the jury. It was then informational, like, when this jury just got elected, we did have committee meetings in February and March, but it was us educating the jurors, these are the funds, this is what you're responsible for, this is what you're allowed to do, this is the ethics. It was more like we were just kind of educating the jurors on how things operate. We haven't really had a meeting where they've come back and these three guys said, okay, we recommend you execute this contract. Like, our jurors have prior to have not done that, to my knowledge, but we have had meetings, and Ms. Jones is saying that, you know, we could, even though we're not making recommendations, we still still need to probably make sure it's public that we're having those
Public.
meetings. Or if she gets her advisement, because, you know, there's a lot of times where we could have a public meeting, but it's more of just educational, we're sending you information for you to digest, so you understand what you're making a decision on. It's not that you're collectively making a recommendation, so I think her opinion would be a good thing in case we ever needed it.
The law just says that you have to have you can't do any business without a quorum, and that your meetings have to be open to the public.
What about education?
Except for, yeah, we always
that's what
thought
she-
that was,
see,
and that's not in there. The only exception is really your executive session, which they have narrowed that down to, pending litigation, things like that. Now, some public bodies, hospital is really the only one I can think of offhand, but the hospital has a really broad executive session thing to where they can meet to discuss business plans
So
in executive.
how's this gonna affect the legislature? You know,
Well, the
they have to be on
legislature-
everything.
Yeah, but the legislature, I don't know, this meeting is directed to your public, so maybe there's not the same route. I don't know that the public, but of course, the legislative committees are open meetings. So that may be,
Maybe that's what we're gonna do.
maybe that's what we have to do. But I'm just concerned, I do know that the school board and the court have made contracts based on committee.
Yeah, I can't ever recall making a contract.
When you ask for your opinion, ask them, does this affect individuals, not committees? Does it handcuff anybody from having any kind of conversations outside of a public meeting having to do with contract? They might just say just for contract, but it may give us some leeway in other things. So be specific on how it's gonna handcuff us, and let it know that, look, we're not the legislature, we don't have an open meeting for months at a time.
Right.
You know,
A lot of the ways we give out our business at yours is talking amongst ourselves about certain
Yeah.
items in private, and then coming to the public in our reasoning
And
for
he
that.
makes some comments about that think he very understood. Okay, so I really want to try to get some clarification.
Because that's just handicapping the
Yeah.
notary and trying to make it.
I think the difference is where Sonny says, when you're talking to your constituents and you're talking to your fellow jurors, because I think that's the difference that he's making. He says that that's a means of evading the open meeting law. I just don't want anybody to come in and say, okay, that contract you made didn't me more good, that person you hired based on the recommendation of the hiring committee, their contract did me good.
Ms. Sherman, do you need a motion from us to allow you to do that?
No, I think just want to get y'all's permission to go ahead and do that.
Please, if we need to have a committee meeting,
Gotta do it, it's almost gotta do it.
why can't we just have it 24 hours ahead of time, just have it open?
We could start doing it that way.
Yeah, as long as you post 24 hours, you can have a meeting.
Well,
Because, I mean, we've never really
Well,
had a decision, a type of committee that we're making a decision in private.
And there is, I think this is coming, I don't know if y'all have seen this in the news, but there is a lot of controversy about this Kenner garbage contract, and, there's organized crime allegations and all types of things involved in it. Yeah, so it's, my boss, Mr. Sanders, used to call it a big truck was what they have over there.
Well, when you get it back, I guess we'll probably have another discussion. and see where we're at.
Yes, but I'm gonna go ahead and try to get that out first part of next week to see if we can get something definitive decided on that. Because I know we all wanna make sure that what we do is valid and then we can act. Okay? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything else from staff? Any other comments? We'll review the agenda.
Just make a resolution. That's fine. Thank you. But there's no cost. Is there?
No expenses, I think.
Any remediation when they are, I know that's done. But,
Well,
that we can pay from.
any questions on the agenda, guys? Any comments?
Okay.
I might not miss it that much.
No comments,
On the,
agenda. Yes, ma'am?
on the agenda, you have Chantel, for Cameron Fire, and she's got.
Pull your mask down for a minute.
Sorry, I use my mama voice. On the agenda, you have to replace Chantel McDaniel on Cameron Fire Board, and she is going to be starting school, and she can't, so she's gonna be resigning her position. You might wanna, let Scott pick someone else for that one.
We'll table it and then I'll find somebody to, that's for fire.
Cameron Fire.
Yeah, her term expired, so we can just table her replacement.
The agenda item number 11 is just the, we're closing do you remember the office floods of, back in 2007, we received disaster CDBG funds to cover the non-federal share that, we would get from FEMA, and that was about $56,000, so, we went through the last 3 years, through that CDBG grant, and we've been reimbursed, so everything that we invested in the August floods to repair anything was funded between this grant and FEMA at 100%. So we're just closing that CDBG grant.
Right. There's no questions. I do have one question that has to do with the agenda. Where's our rock project at?
Which one? Rutherford Beach, they're out there working now.
Okay.
And, we should have rocks on Long Beach within first week of August, yeah.
First week
Within
off.
30 days.
All right, you're here first week off, quick payment.
It's all over Facebook.
Mr. Summey, we have two add-ons.
Okay.
Bob is, he's our man that keeps us.
One, to approve the Blue Cross Blue Shield group hospitalization renewal with term coverage and increase. And two, to approve to demo the ODA building.
Any other comments? Not, we'll adjourn this meeting.